Our next speaker has many roles. People confuse him for a DJ. That could be the case because he did quite a few hours of techno music earlier in this event. The presentation that he is going to perform today has been in the works for many years. He actually originally wanted to give this presentation in 2017, but he had a little bit of overlap with his job as the chair of this whole event. So we thought, okay, I'll do it next time. In 2022, he was still the chair of this event, so still too busy. So as my partner Nancy is now the chair of this event, or actually co-chair, he has some time off to give this amazing presentation about how we make the Netherlands more secure and accessible using transparency. Elger Jonker.
Yay, thank you very much. Yes, let it go. And Nancy has her own beer. I'm so jealous. So, excellent, thanks. So, you might have seen one of these cyber badges. Those are our fault or our mistake. We love them, people love them. We made 6 from them. I'll get back to that in a moment. So, let me first check the clicker, because we've tested everything thoroughly, like 3 times. And now, of course, I'm going to find out that the clicker doesn't work. Let's see. It should work. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. So how we made the Netherlands more accessible and secure using transparency. You can achieve a lot with transparency, and people in established roles are afraid of transparency, so it's very hard to create that. But there is some wiggle room, and me and a few friends use that wiggle room to make the world a better place. Me and a few friends have united in a foundation called the Internet Cleanup Foundation, and that actually started in 2016 with a small project I'll touch upon later. What our foundation does is basically we want to make the world a better place. We want to secure our information and that of everybody else. And the way we do that is using transparency. So we make things public. We create open data for you to use for research, for security researchers and such. And what we actually do is in essence, like everybody else, we make a website. But on this website, you will find maps with all kinds of organizations that are important to society. And you find metrics on every organization of what they do and how well they perform. So, basically, we do 2 things. One is metrics, which you can see on the left side, which we create maps. And for example, this is a map of all government agencies. This is a map of all provinces. You can see that there's a nice thematic color here with red, because there's something wrong. And on the other hand, you see the research that we do. For example, we researched about digital services that are provided from outside of the EU at the government. So what stuff is hosted in other countries? And it turned out to be mainly, if it's hosted abroad and then there's no reason for it, it's mainly hosted in the US out of convenience purposes. So who are we? I'm the person on the left, Stitch. Johan Bloemberg is also in the audience in front, yay. And Wouter Gooyen is also in the audience. You start to look more closely and closely like that picture. So, so it just takes a while that I don't have to change the slides anymore. So we started in 2016, and there's a lot of. This slide is mostly for reference. But we started with a mapping project called Faalkaart, or Failure Map, and we showed the digital failures of the government, mainly TLS issues, and later on we added internet.nl for email issues like spoofing possibilities and such. Then the name Failure Map is a bit harsh, and we decided that it is nicer to use a word that is actually more befitting, and that was basisbeveiliging, or the Dutch word for baseline security, or security baseline. So we started there. Then we had a longer period where we were searching for sponsors and users. And at a certain point, through magic and random events or luck, we found somebody at SIP, the Centrum voor Informatiebeveiliging en Privacybescherming, so the Center for Information Security and Privacy Protection. And together with them, our project was adopted as a government project. So we are the first hacker project that are official government policy now in the Netherlands. So that's pretty fun. And that also legitimizes everything that we do. So I can show you what we do later on. And this is all excellent. You can all do this in the Netherlands. And there's many countries where this would be or cause a problem or riots or whatever, jail time. But in the Netherlands, there's more room. And the rest I'll touch upon later. So, you might have encountered us by knowing or unknowing, for example, with the cyber cards, of which we made 6 for the camp. Each of you have received one, probably. We've made one with glitter even, so the nicer red one. So if you want all of them, we are at the Defaced Village, and there's a table there, and you can take all of them. If you want to complete your collection. There's now 20 different tokens. And every time we go to a conference or have a major sponsor or donation, we create some new cards. One of them I would like to highlight specifically, which is the card of the Rijksinspectie Digitale Infrastructuur. It's a digital services agency. And they do all kind of checks on, for example, radio piracy. So they have the governmental role to combat radio piracy. If you start your own pirate radio station and do that on a very popular frequency, they will be at your door in 5 minutes to take it down. So they decided to sponsor us every year or donate our project because we create open data that they like. And we made a special token for them as well, which has this design on it. For those who are in the radio business, you might recognize what's going on here. This is the most basic FM radio transmitter that you can build using very cheap parts. So you can actually make something that allows you, if you use that properly, you will be visited by them. And they hand them out as well. It's really nice. It's an old school 70s style radio frequency. It broadcasts on FM and some other frequencies. It's terrible. It's way worse than a €1 FM transmitter, so it's actually fun to show. Other projects are where you could recognize us is our nice PHP admin project, which which I will touch upon later on, and our Dutch niet veilig sticker. It says not secure with a green check mark, and it has like it looks very official, but it's it's very confusing by design, and it's fun. So we make things transparent, and I would like to do that, like to show that in 2 parts. One part is security, and one part is accessibility. And I'll start with the security part. That's the part that we originally started with in 2016. And this year, at April 1st, we also created a new logo for our project. Yes, that's right. That is WordArt 97, and we're running with it. We have stickers and such, because it's also basis, so it's simple. So we take a simple logo, and it's better than Comic Sans. So yeah, and we even made a commercial, and this commercial is in Dutch. Specifically, it's in Tilburgs, which is a bit harder to understand for Dutchies as well. And it has a typically market sales vendor characteristic. It's 2 minutes, and it will drain some of your energy. I hope you can follow what we're doing. It has been the text and the script was written by me and 205 Records and spoken in by 205 Records. So that's an actual human voice, so no AI slop. But the video might contain some AI slop. So hope you spot it.
Wilde gaan we organisatie veilig maken, maar die braaiers hebben tijdens deze film alweer 3 van die boutwebsites online gegooid. En hoe ICT is ingegrond een boutzooi. Je betaalt allemaal aan abonnementjes aan virus, scanners en andere beveiligingsproducten. Kost allemaal klauwen met geld, maar gaat er helemaal geen kut aan. En verdwijnen alle rapporten en adviezen sneller in de la is dan Reptastic. Vanaf nu niet meer, want nu hebben wij basisbeveiliging. Basisbeveiliging! Hey Fransje hier, luister, ik heb er een product voor jullie, de basisbeveiliging. Ik snap geen kut van computers, maar zelfs ik ken het. Let op hoe we dat doen. Dit is een geïntegreerd, modulair, gecompartimentaliseerd en gedefragmenteerd informatiesysteem voor alle basis, overzichts en veiligheidsbehoeften. En kijk hier eens achter me, en alles staat op groen. De groen, alle scherm is groen. Dus als je een organisatie hebt, moet je ook zorgen dat alles op groen staat. Pats, boom en op groen. Dat is gewoon groen en handel, jongen, echt. Kijk, en hier zie je al die andere boutprogramma's die je gewoon in de steek laat. Kijk hier eens. Hier is basisbeveiliging. Lekker basis, lekker veilig, kost helemaal niks, kan je gewoon gebruiken. Beetje deur klikken naar uw eigen bedrijf of naar de buren. Die kunnen er helemaal niks aan. Moeten kijken wat een tering zo, maar die wist al. Iedereen kan dat nou zien. Kost helemaal niks. Dat is toch amazing? En zelfs op vakantie op een boot in een caravan of als je ziek bent, een begrafenis, zondag in de kerk, tijdens een diepzeeduik, neemt de werk overal altijd mee naartoe. Wereldwijd en voor iedereen. Werken, werken, werken. Yeah! En elke dag krijg jij nieuwe rapporten met allemaal nieuwe gegevens. Kan jij zo downloaden, deursturen en uitprinten, boven het bed hangen. Laat jullie moeder zien hoe goed dat jij het doet. Uw moeder zal voor het eerste keer trots op je zijn. Goed bezig, manneke. Dus voor scholen, overheid, ziekenhuisjes, vitaal of welke doet iets belangrijks voor Nederland als koud kikkerlijntje, weet wel. Dan moet u nu basisbeveiliging hebben. En we geven het weg. Helemaal voor niks naar de noppes. Dus bezoek nu en we zitten klaar voor jou. Kom op, gas erop. Maar wacht, er is meer. Als uw organisatie alles oplegt, krijg je eind september een authentiek, uniek en nieuw ontworpen veiligheidscertificaat. Ook helemaal voor niks naar de noppes. En als je nog eens denkt, word toch van mijn geld af, dan wil je meteen nog meer e-mail en meer vrienden. Word dan toch een deelnemer van de Internet Cleanup Foundation. Jongen, dat is gewoon hartstikke mooi. Of koppel ons prachtig jaarboekje om in te kleuren. Ken ook. Dus vat uw telefoon, uw laptop of tablet of in ieder geval iets met internet erop en ga naar basisbeveiliging.nl. Gewoon doen. Basisbeveiliging!
Wordt u gehackt? Niet onze schuld. Werkt u bij de overheid? Niet onze schuld. Geen reactie van de helpdesk? Niet onze schuld. Wij accepteren ook goudstaven en staatsobligaties. De rest is ook niet onze schuld.
So yeah, it was an AI party. It was really nice to see how well it grew. If you work with AI and you don't know it yet, search for things like windmills or something like that. It's gorgeous. You get windmills with 3 or 5. It's and they twist all around. It's beautiful. That's true art. So if you want to look at the video later on, here's the QR code. For reference, I'll just wait a few seconds while people take some pictures. It's not a rickroll, I promise. This is a rickroll. Alrighty, so the basisbeveiliging project became part of the Dutch governmental policy. And that's been written down. Yeah, I'll just wait. Yeah, okay. That's been written down in 2 government documents: the Dutch National Cybersecurity Strategy by the Ministry of Justice and the National Coördinator Terrorismebestrijding en Veiligheid. They have also supported us a few years ago. They did a one-time donation of 50,000 euros to get things back on track and make sure the project worked. And then we are listed in the werkagenda waarde gedreven digitaliseren. It's the agenda that says how the Dutch government, what the Dutch government values, or what the values are for digital services that are, that, for example, that they can be used by everybody, and that they are transparent, and things like open source. So they have written down some values, and we are part of the how making things transparent and secure chapter. And the project is also in for example, letters to the House of Representatives. This is the letter that was sent in June 2024, and it says that the government uses basisbeveiliging for monitoring how well it performs. This was in response to a commercial organization that does something similar, but they say like, you all suck, everybody is very, there's critical vulnerabilities, but you have to pay us money before we tell you. Well, that's not really what we do. We make everything transparent. So, but there are some limits to what we can do because everything is transparent, and we do not want to increase the risks for anyone. So we do not publish, for example, SQL injection or open databases or default credentials on certain login portals. So we have a few policies. We never increase risks. The risks are already there. Attackers have this data already, but most organizations don't have it in a convenient way or have it split up in different parts of the organization, such and we provide one set of data. We are a foundation or a civilian initiative, which gives us more freedom to publish and talk about security risks. And we are not like the DIVD, the Dutch Institute for Vulnerability Disclosure. They do the really heavy vulnerabilities, and they work like with direct lines to organizations that are scanned, and we do everything that can be openly and public. We are also independent. That means we don't have a commercial interest, so we're not part of the cybersecurity industry, and we're also not a government, so we can just ignore emails or policies that somebody would enforce upon us. For example, we get emails like, you have to remove these domains for reason X, Y, Z. No. So we don't have to do that at all. And it's public data anyway, so why should we do something like that? Or you are not allowed to publish about, I don't know, certain TLS issue or a certain website or port or something. We can just ignore those emails. And we get them from every layer, every conceivable layer, up until the Dutch domain register. So that's funny. And we just ignore those. And for the rest, we provide very nice services. For example, if somebody says, hey, this domain is now transferred to someone else, or etc. And yeah, we do that in a best effort scenario, and we have a fairly good reputation for that, but our help desk is unfortunately still slow. We get about 250 emails a month. Since a few weeks, we get a whole lot of spam, so we have to remove that from the statistics somehow. But there's a lot of emails with just domain management garbage, I think. Luckily, there is a project. We are sponsored by the DIVD this year to fix part of that management. But that's a surprise project for later this year. We've also written down a lot of things, because once the government does something with a project like this, they want to know how it works, what our standards are, when do we publish something. So we've written down a lot of stuff for non-technical people to understand what we are doing. That's actually very important. If you do something like this, you have to be the things that we all know, everybody in this room has in the top of mind and knows, like, yeah, how to deal with a certain vulnerability. Those things have all to be written down and communicated. And yeah, that took some effort. And that's actually pretty hard, we found. So what we actually do is we measure parts of the internet. And if you've ever done anything with cybersecurity, it looks a little bit like this. For example, you have a domain, government.nl. We search for domains. We've got a lot of domains, like 80 to 85% of the .nl zone. And we find subdomains on those. We connect them to organizations, so we know what organization has what domain most of the time. And on those subdomains, we find various endpoints, such as a website or an FTP server or whatnot. And those things are monitored or scanned by a bunch of tools. For example, Internet.nl, we started with Qualys SSL labs, we have Nucleus, some Python scripts, Nmap. So basically, that part is very comparable to many other projects that do measuring of certain vulnerabilities, like the well-known vulnerability scanners. So from these, we generate security metrics and we publish those. And we do that for about 11,000 or 12,000 organizations and 230,000 domains. And that's just the Netherlands. So this is a timeline of what we've added, and you can see that we've added a lot in the last years. So we started with municipalities because that creates a nice map. And then we added the rest of the government, and it's a lot. We have like 1,500 organizations or something like that now, to date. We've added hospitals and public health, what's it called, GGD's, gemeentelijke gezondheid, municipal health services. And we added all political parties, which is up for a small update because of the new elections this year. We've added all cybersecurity companies, so we measure ourselves and all Dutch cybersecurity companies on the same types of vulnerabilities. And spoiler alert, they're not really greatly secured. So, but that's part of their risk-based approach, you know. And everything on education, all vital infrastructure parties like energy, water, bank, payment system, digital domain services, whatever. So, and a lot is coming still. Basically, everything that matters to Dutch society is something that we are interested in to monitor. And yeah, that's a lot of work, of course. Just managing that's a lot of work. So here are some maps of the government and the 4 layers of Dutch government and safety regions, because it looks nice, and they actually have some green. And here's, for example, all layers in education, from primary education, that's like 6,000 schools, to universities, which are about 18. And you can zoom in on each of these things. You can zoom in on each individual metric. For example, here you see a map of the Netherlands with all metrics combined from September 2024. On the right, you see only DNSSEC. And you see that there are some red parts, and those red parts are mostly websites that are project domains for special purposes or campaigns. So it's almost never the main website of your municipality. It's only 1 or 2. But you can zoom in even more. You can see what domains are actually lacking this specific DNSSEC security standard. And on this level of like overall information over various sectors, we have a few special sections. One of them is a tracking cookie view. What we do, we measure tracking cookies that are placed without consent. So we visit a website with a browser and check which cookies are placed. And if we encounter one of, I don't know, a dozen well-known tracking cookies, which are documented by Google and such, they are very clear on what they do. Then we add them to, like a dashboard of all organizations that use tracking cookies without consent. And this is illegal in the Netherlands. So everything I'm going to show you, that's illegal. So the enforcement there, well, has to take place sometime. Until there is enforcement, well, then it's pretty much legal, I think. So you can write a law, but if you don't enforce it, what's the law good for? And you can zoom into various sections, for example, cybersecurity companies, and there, for example, a random company I've chosen, Deloitte, has 2 domains where they place tracking cookies, .elite.nl and discover.elite.nl, and you can even zoom in more, and you see that they probably have some YouTube video embed where they forgot to disable the tracking cookies. It's a small mistake. It's easy to make. So, and those mistakes are not made on purpose. They're made by accident because it's very easy and convenient to make those mistakes. They could have used a different video hosting platform. They could have used it, YouTube nocookie.com or something like that. But yeah, it's really easy to make those types of mistakes. And we, as Internet Cleanup Foundation, also have made these types of mistakes. Because it's so easy to, for example, if you have a website or a WordPress website and you click a new plugin, then you get all kinds of tracking stuff for free. So it's not to be malicious or annoying to Deloitte here in this case, but it's more to make a point that it's easy to make a mistake. I hope maybe it's fixed tonight. We'll see. Another thing that we have is a museum. We scan for banners, software banners. So if you go to a website or a port and it says like, hello, I am a website running server XYZ made in, I don't know, 2001. And we have grabbed all those banners and put them in a museum. So you can learn a little bit about what type of software this is, until when it was supported with a link to the support page. And there you can see like, what websites are actually still using this. So it's like a living online museum that you can visit, hosted by various governments and organizations. So if you want to see where your Python 2 or PHP 5 scripts are, well, enjoy. Last but not least, we also have a leaderboard where we compare sectors against another. For example, we compare all the metrics that we do, about 25. And here you see the government compared to cybersecurity companies compared to healthcare. The one in the row that is doing best gets a green heart. The one that's doing worst gets a poop emoji. And of course, it's the goal to get as many green hearts as you can. If you do everything right, if you have a 100% score, then you will get a pink heart emoticon. Yay. So you can see that there's a distinction between the government and cybersecurity companies in healthcare. And you see the government is actually doing pretty well. Why? Because they rolled out all kinds of policies for themselves, which have been enforced or put into practice in the last 5 or 10 years. So if you actually write something down and make it a policy and adopt it, we see all kinds of companies also adopting these policies instead of writing things themselves, then you see that your organization is doing better. So governments, in baseline security, governments are doing better than cybersecurity companies. That's only in the Netherlands. I know for sure that in Germany or Belgium, that's not the case. It's just as crap. So we can also compare ministries, for example. So here are there used to be 12 ministries. There might be 12 again soon. And we have, for example, the Ministry of General Affairs, which has a small domain portfolio of 300 domains. They basically do everything right. So it's very nice. And in contrast, we have the Ministry of Justice and Security, which has a much bigger domain portfolio, and that does, well, a lot of things not so great. So they're at the bottom of the list. So you can see that different policies affect different ministries. But the Ministry of Justice and Security is still doing better than the cybersecurity industry. So, but there's one special thing there. It's still to date. I recently updated this. These cybersecurity companies have phishing domains which are intentionally bad. We have to filter out those in some way. Maybe that affects the scores. And they also use all kinds of, tools for backcalling and such. if they do XSS attacks and such, they will get calls on certain subdomains, and we're creating a set of subdomains that they can use on their domains where everything is allowed. So you can make it as terrible as possible and it's just fine. So maybe that would even the score a little bit. I don't think so, but that was a request from the industry, so that's something that we will add. For each and every organization, how much time do I have left? Enough, way enough, okay. For each and every organization, you can see all their domains and all the measurements that we do, and this is our portfolio from a few months back. You can see a nice set of green check marks for every metric. And it's pretty hard to keep that green, but yeah. We get emails, if we do something wrong, we get an email from ourselves that says, hey, you're doing something wrong, and then we can fix it. For example, if you zoom in on each of one of these metrics, then it has a nice screenshot and it says no security issue found, etc. Of course, you can also see the cookies of an organization. You can see the location of the servers, basically based on the IP, and open or semi-open IP databases by Rijp and MaxMind, and a few other things. What we also show are the trends over time, so all the data that we have, you can basically zoom. We have a time machine on the website. You can go back to 2016 till now, and you can see data from on what date, what score there was. These are the trends for us. And you also see these nice red lines, so there's also things that are risks at our organization, and you can see that we quickly act upon those. So we actually maintain a nice baseline. So what does this do? What does all this transparency do? Well, we see that organizations move, and we don't visualize that quite well yet. That's something we're working on. But we see organizations move, and you can see that with these types of graphs over time, these trends. You can see like a governmental IT organization, SSC ICT, is basically having the red line flatlined at a certain point. You can see the ODE organization, also the Marchichet, also municipalities here, the same. You can see the orange line at Gemeente Zuidwest-Friesland. You see that drops. Those organizations are basically in control of what they have, as far as we can see that. Or you can see that if you want. All universities are the same. You see the University of Twente, or Nijmegen, of Amsterdam. You can see where we started communicating about we are going to measure you, and then you see this drop in risks, which is pretty nice. The same goes for political parties. Here are the Volt, the Pirate Party, which had a lot of risks, and the SGP, a religious party. So they all took a lot of stuff. They did a lot of stuff. What makes basisveiliging or baseline security unique? It's transparency, the way we present stuff. It's free for everybody. It's also open source. You can host it yourself. If you want to have a lot of headaches, I highly recommend that. Currently, Johan, Wouter, and I have all the headaches, so yeah, it's a challenge. It's part of policy, and it's, as far as we know, the most complete .nl, most complete list of .nl domains that there is out there. So, and it's all for use for everybody. That's one part of what we do. The other part is something that we just started on, which is basis toegankelijk, baseline accessibility. The goal with that project is to repeat what we did and make accessibility, or an accessible website, make that easier and cheaper to make by using automated tools, automated scanning, and public data. The same stuff, but in a different area. And to give an impression, we currently have about 70,000 websites that we monitor for accessibility. We are measuring about 2 million pages every cycle. So every time we do those websites, we made about 5 million screenshots, and it's 130 days of measuring condensed into, parallelized over N machines. And we found over 600,000 impediments of all the websites that we know. So the website looks the same, only the content is different. Here's a report of the Internet Cleanup Foundation, and you can see our website is not accessible. We find about 30% of all accessibility issues. So absolutely not everything, but we find a lot that is of use and that you can use to improve your website. So let's drill down to an example. Here's our website, basisbeveiliging.nl. We also, because it's a governmental site, we have added a declaration on how accessible we are. That's the letter D. A is the best, D is terrible. No, we have the letter D. And you can drill down and see how many pages have been visited and what kind of issues there are. In this case, there's a contrast issue. Basically, in this link, it's too light. So there's already one dashboard in the Netherlands that does accessibility, and that's made by the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations, or BZK for the Dutchies. And we are adding to that. So what they require are manual audits, so they have 100% coverage, or, well, WCAGEM selection of coverage, which is pretty decent, because it has to be performed by a human in part. We have, and in contrast, we do a lot more sites, and we do that more often. So yeah, you can use both approaches, and you can use basistoegankelijk to stay accessible, at least for the part that you can measure automatically. We've created for this a new website with a new layout, which looks like this. Small, funny thing, if you go to either of our websites and click on the logo 5 times, you will get our jingle. So keep that in mind. Wouter was playing with maps and found a new piece of mapping software instead of leaflet, and this has a nice feature that's especially nice for management porn. That's this. Ooh. Ooh. So thank you, Wouter, for adding a 3D to our website. I want to close off with one upcoming metric. Since we have 10 minutes left, one of the things that we want to measure thoroughly and consistently are login portals. We did a few rounds of login portals, and we found a lot of interesting portals, such as PHP Email Admin and Typo3 and such. And we think some of these should not be public. Maybe all of these should not be public. PHP Email Admin is a tool that you might know. It's an online database management tool, so basically manages your database of your website or whatever is behind that. And we think that should not be a public thing. It's for developers, it's for maintenance or whatever, but that should not be a publicly accessible thing. But we've measured on this on all of these layers, or most of our layers, and we found about 1,500 of these portals. So a ton, also still in the government. So the government uses this a lot, but they don't pay for it. So I don't know how they think this is ever going to be secure, but they use it, they depend on it, but they're not paying for this. So because they use it so much, I've created a new logo for PHP My Admin, which is the Dutch governmental logo with PHP My Admin below it, in the hopes that the Dutch government finally decides to actually sponsor the project they depend on, so pay for what you use. let's see if they ever do so. So, yeah. Also, we're not entirely nasty and annoying, mostly just. We're handing out certificates for organizations that are doing really well. Last year we handed out certificates, the 3 first certificates to large banks, Volksbank, ING and ABN AMRO. They removed all orange and medium or high or medium vulnerabilities that we deem high or medium from their main domains and all of their subdomains. And there were some other banks, and from that, we handed out our first set of certificates. Brought one with me. It looks like a certificate more than any other certificate, as you can see. And if you cannot see it with the camera, but if you light a UV light on it, you have a nice UV Rick Ashley. So our challenge is to make a better certificate this year. We will hand out something new as well, which are poker chips with the organization or a link to the report of the organization, made with a 3D printer. And we will have to make up a new shiny certificate for all organizations that are doing well this year. We call this the certificatenregen. We handed out 100 certificates last year, and we hope to hand out 100 to 200 certificates this year. And we do that to all organizations that are green on basisbeveiliging between September 22 and 26. One day should be enough, so you can cheat it. I don't recommend to do so. And we even got a certificate ourselves. Look. So here we are with the banks in the Netherlands. So yeah, let me skip a bunch of slides. For questions, I've skipped a whole lot. If you have any questions, you can approach me, Wouter, or Jan after the talk. We are a foundation. If you want to support us, this is our financial breakdown from last year. So you can see this transparency part also applies to us. So we do a lot of this work in our spare time. If you want to support us, you can become a participant of our foundation, or you can give a research assignment or ask for custom support, etc. Here are some contact information to do so. And that's what I would like to close off this talk with. So become a participant, and thank you all for your time.
All right, we have 5 minutes for questions. If you have a question here in the room, please queue up at the microphone here behind the gentleman with the big beard over there. And I'm also checking with my signal angel if we have questions from the internet. If you are watching the live stream, now would be the time to ask your question on IRC, so we can hand that to Elger here. First question.
Are there similar efforts in other countries?
Yes. One of them is in Sweden, where they have most of the same metrics. Part of that is done by the Swedish domain registrant. And there is another country, but that has slipped my mind. But I've seen multiple maps in other countries, but I've not seen them outside of Europe yet.
Hi. Well, first of all, thanks for a really interesting talk and for the really cool visualizations as well. I was wondering, of course, you can gather data and say, you know, what you're doing is not good, it's not safe. But how did you manage to get the government to pay attention, to appreciate what you're doing, and then to change their ways and to better themselves?
Well, part of that is communication. So we presented the first map of our metrics on a conference which has only CISOs of governments there, or municipalities. So there was like this room with, I don't know, 200 people, 150 were CISO of a municipality. So I showed the map and it was like instant panic. And from there on, the security organization of the municipalities took these metrics with them in their communication. So we use like a network of responsible organizations like CERTs, like NCSC, to communicate to them what we're doing, and they can relay that. So, and we do a lot of communication to organizations that we are going to measure anew. So branch organizations, so cybersecurity companies, they all get an email that we're going to measure them publicly. And we think we should do that because that prevents surprises.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's part of it. The rest, the government part is magic. I don't know. It just happened, and it's really nice.
Hi, what are your plans on expanding your accessibility testing?
We want to add a few more tools. We are currently using X. It's an open source tool. It's their gateway tool for the company that made it. It's a gateway tool for more of their services. There are competing tools. IBM has one, and there are some more. We also want to check websites on readability, for example. It takes some effort. We have some budget this year. We are granted a budget by the SRDN fund and by the government, and that together made it possible to create something like this. And yes, we want to add something, to add even more, but automatic measurements do not, as far as I know, go past the 30 or 40% mark of all requirements.
Many of the Dutch certificates, they come through the Ministry of Algemene Zaken. They hand out it every year by hand. So they could not comply to the new upcoming rules of renewing your certificates every 60 days, I think. Mm-hmm. So what should the government do about that? And are you going to test that in a future certificate report or report?
Yeah, the renewal of 60 days, well, it's nice to have automatic renewals. We did research on how much the government currently pays to Sectigo and the other dominating organization. We pay about 2 million euros in tax money to those organizations, excluding the work, and that's a factor 100 more. So we are about paying just 200 million euros as a society to manage certificates. That should be automated, and that's something that Forum Standaardisatie is currently rolling out. So the automatic certificate renewal will become mandated, I hope, because it's a waste of your time to manage this by hand. So if you're going to test it, yeah, I think so, somewhere in the future. It's not at the top of our list.
All right, any questions from the internet? Ask my fellow angels, no questions. So I kindly ask you for a final round of applause to Elger Jonker and all the people at basisbeveiliging.nl.